Hey there. Today I have the honor of speaking with David Bruton Jr., a former NFL safety and Super Bowl 50 champion with the Denver Broncos. He's known for his versatility, dedication, and leadership. David spent 7 seasons in the league and was named team captain 3 times. After retiring from football, he transitioned into a new chapter, earning a doctorate in physical therapy and making an impact in the healthcare world, including a bill introduced in Colorado for allowing PTs to diagnose and treat concussions. But why I want you to listen to this podcast is for one reason. We always feel as athletes that we are probably not cut to be athletes. But today, I will talk with someone who was a professional athlete and who admits that actually we all struggle and fall off the wagon more often than we would like to. So stay tuned. This will be a great episode for you. I'm EGR and this is Aduthlete. Hi, David. How are you today?
I'm doing fantastic. How about yourself?
Very good. Thank you for being here today. It's really an honor. And I'm really interested to know a little bit more about your experience because you have a pretty solid background as an athlete, which is not something that everyday person experience in his her life.
hmm
So that's really interesting. And also, you have a doctorate in physical therapy. So this is also pretty interesting. I mean, you have a whole complete profile here.
Yeah.
So I really want to pick up your brain. But first of all, I'm really curious. What is life as being an NFL player?
As a former NFL player, life was hectic during the season, right? You're playing 17, 20 weeks at least during the season. And everybody thinks you're just out there practicing and, you're not doing too much. But in actuality, we're spending a lot of time in that meeting room. We're studying opponents, we practice, we're worried about our health, being on top of the game plan, but also realizing that the NFL industry, NFL means not for long, right? And you have to be a professional, you have to be accountable, and you also have to perform. And it's not just what have you done for me lately, it's what have you done for me now and now and now. So you have to keep performing at a high level because every year 250 plus guys are being drafted and brought in free agency. So it's always a revolving door. So there's always a lot of stress there. But as far as outside of that, the stresses of actually playing, it's a huge blessing. I've been very fortunate to bless my family. Been very fortunate enough to bless the community, give back, open up my own foundation that's geared toward childhood literacy, and it's just something that my parents instilled in me a long time ago. It's like if you're blessed in some way, shape, or form, why don't you share that blessing to other individuals? And then I've been fortunate enough to have such a platform that I could touch a lot more people in a positive light, positive manner, versus one individual. Not saying that that's not impactful, but I have a broader reach with my background and what that brought forth for me.
So it's very competitive, and you always have to be up to higher standards and find what else is there for you. That I think it's very stressful, isn't it?
Oh, for sure. For sure. Like think about training camp. Training camp's 3, 4 weeks long. You're grinding it out every single day, and there's multiple cuts. Guys are getting released throughout that month time frame. Um, so you go from 100 guys on the roster after the third till the third preseason game. This is back when I played. Now there's only 3 preseasons, but back in the day there was 4. Um, the third preseason game, you're going in with like 90 to 100 guys. After that, you're down to like anywhere between 70 to 80 guys because they cut them, and then they got to cut another 17, 20 guys to make a 53-man roster. So there's a lot of guys within that week. About 40, 45 guys are getting cut, don't have a job with their current team. Not saying they might not get picked up somewhere else, but I mean, the way the NFL is very cutthroat, very businesslike, very very performance based, performance driven.
So basically you're in, but you still don't know if you're gonna get a
Hmm.
spot. And
Hmm.
yeah, I guess
Absolutely.
that's and you have to
Absolutely.
invest everything you have.
Absolutely.
Guys. Yeah, it must be very hard. I would say maybe when you're very young, it's easier to do this kind of lifestyle. But I guess once you hit, I don't know, 30 plus, then it's getting like a little bit more overload.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I mean, I think health has changed in such a manner where you're not just throwing a lot of weight on you. It's more functionality. It's more. There's more resources available. There's different like blood tests, so you can tailor your diet to specifically meet your needs and not necessarily inflammatory or processed food or things of that nature. So the way health has evolved allows for guys to play a lot longer, allows for guys to stay healthier longer, allows for guys to go out there and still play with their kids after they're said and done. Um,
Mhm.
but yeah, like I said, it's very stressful. It was very stressful. There's definitely been times where I told I was going to get cut and released, and then you have to go out there and perform and do something great. Um, because, like I said, it's performance based, performance driven, and every other business does a performance review, maybe quarterly or monthly or something along those lines. Your performance review is every week for those 20 plus weeks.
What?
Yeah, your film is getting watched every single day, every single week.
Gosh,
Hmm.
so much pressure.
Hmm.
But you were in the Denver Broncos for 7 years,
Yes,
so
ma'am.
it's quite few time,
Yeah,
right? And
yeah,
then you moved to the Washington Redskins
yes.
for some months. Yeah, so still you were in for a lot of time.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, I think the average career is 3.2 years or something like that. So
Hmm.
I did a great job, finding my home base here in Denver and performing and moving up the ranks to be considered a leader and voted captain for the Broncos for 3 years. So I was very fortunate in that sense to, make Denver home.
Hmm. And how did you make it to the league? Because I think if it's that competitive, like must be very precise with your goals and manage to get in must be very hard as well.
Honestly, it just happened. I got an opportunity to start my junior year in college at the University of Notre Dame, and it just kind of happened. I didn't know. I guess I would say I was naive in the sense with high school recruiting and then college being scouted by an NFL scout, NFL agents, and then moving forward to the league. I just went out there and played. Um,
Hmm.
what I did was just play. I didn't worry about any other stressors. I just went out there and had fun. That's all I wanted to do. All I ever learned to do is like just go out there and have fun. Be stress free. You'll play faster that way. And I was very fortunate enough to get drafted in the NFL and stay here for a while. But I learned a lot throughout my time at Notre Dame because I had a coach who had a pro background. He coached the New England Patriots when they were winning Super Bowls left and right. Um, we had a very old team at my freshman sophomore year, so I had a lot of veteran leadership or elder classman leadership um, to teach me how to handle business as a student athlete with a full time job. As far as football, being a full time student, and then my oldest son being born during my freshman season, so
Ooh.
I had a lot going on, but I had a lot of leadership, a lot of support around me to help me grow and foster as a not just a student, but and not just as an athlete, but a father as well.
Oh, that's good. I mean, you had a lot on your plate, but you managed definitely to put everything in order. So, okay, so it just happened. I think it's really great that you were just having fun, you were playing, you were a talent, and then someone like just directioned you and managed to go in the where you actually belonged, basically,
For
and
sure,
grow from there.
for sure. No, it happened the way it was supposed to, right? I didn't force any hands. Obviously, when the scout came up to me, and was like, "Hey, I think you're going to be drafted or whatever." Then you start having in the back of your minds like, "Okay, life trajectory could change quite a bit. Um, how can how can I become better as an athlete? I was always a hard
Mhm.
worker, but how it's like that little bit more. It's like to be
Smart.
able, yep,
Yeah.
yep, a little bit more
Yeah.
motivated.
Hard is not only the way, right? You have to work smarter.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, yep, and then the
Mm.
whole timing and opportunity thing, right?
Yeah.
With like today's college football. Like I don't know if I can make it in today's college football with the NIL deals and the transfer portal and me being 17 when I went off to college. Like they're not looking for young guys nowadays. They're looking for those in the transfer portal, 21, 22 years old.
Okay. So it changed
Hmm.
completely.
Hmm.
Mm. So now you're not an athlete full time, but do you still do some sport?
So I cycle a road bike every year. My foundation, we have a Bruton's Book cycling team, and we participate in the Courage Classic every year, which
Hmm.
is geared towards um, combating all types of childhood diseases, based out of the Children's Colorado Hospital here on CU Anschutz campus, maybe 25 minutes from where I'm at right now. It's an 81-mile ride, about 6,000 feet climbing. It's a grind. It's a grind, but you have good people with you. It's a lot of fun. So in that sense, when the weather gets super nice, I'll get on the bike a lot more. Over the past couple weeks, I've definitely been a lot more active in the gym because my oldest daughter. So I have my oldest son and my oldest daughter. She's 9, so there's 19 and 9, big gap there.
Wow.
Big gap there. But but she's in the track and she wants to get good at the 400 meters. So teaching her how to run the 400, and we're constantly training for it. It's like, how do I get better at the 400, Dad? I'm like, you die every practice. Like it is a toughest, that is one of the if not the toughest race out there. Um, so she's jump kicked it. Like, okay, I'm back into lifting. I'm back into to running on the treadmill, training for a 400 because she wants me to run in one of the track meets, and then also the cycling, and then just I think it's good for me to make sure I stay on top of my health thing. But I'm very active in the sense of the golf world, golf community. I golf a lot, whether that's indoor or outdoor. Um, like I said, cycling. Now I'm back into lifting. And then every now and then I'll dabble into snowboarding. I used to snowboard a lot, but I don't have that type of time with the clinic now. So
Yeah, clear.
yeah.
So, what do you think it's the biggest? Because you've tried both ways, right? To be a real athlete professionally and full time, and now recreational, so to
Hmm.
say.
Hmm.
What do you think is the main difference in these two type of activity?
I think as a professional athlete, everything's structured. I think that's what made it easier. It's like it was structured. Like cool. If you had to be in the training room, you had to be there at 6 o'clock. If you were healthy and didn't have to be there, you started at 7. Like, and then you knew it was 7 to 5 or 7 to 3 as the week got as it got later in the week. So the structure is definitely very helpful as a professional athlete, and it's your job. Like you're getting paid for it. You
Hmm.
don't show up, you don't get paid. You get cut. There's no more checks coming to you, right? So there's that structure, that stress right there. As a recreational athlete, I think you have to love it. You have to enjoy it. You have to enjoy working out, and you have to be disciplined enough to create your own structure because nobody else is going to discipline you. It's on you. So
Yeah.
you have that innate motivation, and that's where I was struggling for such a long time because like I worked out my whole life essentially, right? Like from seventh grade, starting with football, all the way through college, and then 8 years in the league. I worked out my whole life. Um, so like taking a step back from the gym was a breath of fresh air, but oh my goodness, it was so hard to get back into it because I had no routine. I had no
Yeah.
structure. And then I got back into school and I had a buddy. And so we held ourselves accountable. And then I fell off the wagon again once we graduated from the PT programs. Like, well, I got the business and we got the kids and, I only have time to cycle once in a blue moon. Like there's so many things that I had to manage. And just finding that time, that discipline, that ability to wake up and be cognizant of like my health and stay on top of my fitness and my well-being and being an example for my patients. Like that's been
Mhm.
tough because there hasn't been really any structure.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what everybody struggles.
Hmm.
That's why, and as you said, you fall off the wagon
Hmm.
all the time.
Hmm.
But I think it's good to normalize this. I mean, even that you are now saying it, I mean, this is a huge impact you think about, because people think, oh, I'm just not cut out. I'm not an athlete. And
Hmm.
yeah, okay, you're not. But like you saying this really makes it
Yeah,
real that it's a struggle that
yeah,
literally everybody has, you know?
yeah. Absolutely. It's a real struggle. Ideally, like we would love to just get in shape right then and there. Like once we lift one weight, yeah, I reached my goal, right? But to understand, you have to be disciplined for however long it takes for you to reach your goal. So I think what's very important is goal setting. I think you have incremental goal settings where you're not trying to get everything in, that 2 months or 3 months. Like right, set forth. You have a quarterly goal. 3 months here, I have this goal. I want to lose 8 pounds. At 6 months, I want to lose. I want it to be a total of 14 pounds, so on and so forth. Or like I want to lose inches, not necessarily pounds. Like you set these quarterly goals instead of like at the end of the year, I'm going to lose all this weight and I'm not going to check or worry about anything else. Well, we're a society. Uh, we're a species that loves rewards. Like we love gratification. We love seeing success, right? And I do that with my patients. Like, okay, look, here's what we did a couple weeks ago. You couldn't do this. Now you're able to do it one leg, maintaining that balance. Okay, you're able to power lift, and we couldn't even get you out of the chair without your back wanting to fire up. So like you're setting these little goals throughout these smart plans, these smart goals throughout your year, especially with the new year coming. You set that forth.
Yeah, everybody, and the problem is exactly that,
Mm-hmm.
because everybody's rushing to get these New Year's
Mm-hmm.
resolutions, and
Mm-hmm.
then everybody rushes to the gym in January, and then it falls down.
Mm-hmm.
The people just stop coming, and you forget about it. But it's really good what you said, incremental, like micro habits,
Mm-hmm.
to really, as I said, not getting everything together, but just like, okay, just a little bit tiny step
Yeah,
and checking in. Have I made it
absolutely.
or not? And
Absolutely.
write it down, and then
Mm-hmm.
checking, because honestly, at the end of the year, I don't even remember what I decided last January. You know what I mean?
Right. Right.
I have
Right.
no clue. In fact, I've decided tomorrow I'm gonna do like a workshop for myself.
Okay.
Whatever have I done, and what
Yeah.
I wanted to do in the next 5, 10 years, because you
Mm-hmm.
need to really think through it,
Yeah. Yeah. It's not something
and
that
write
just.
it down. Make a real workshop.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. And set forth a reward for you, right? Set forth some type of, oh, I hit this goal. I get to buy myself such and such Lululemon or whatever, like something to keep tailoring towards my fitness goal or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. This is so important. So I saw that so you had to transition. Of course, you said you were always kind of making yourself better, adding something to your profile. But
Mm-hmm.
when was the moment when you said, "Okay, I think this is almost over, and I want to transition to physical therapy, and I want to get like highest degree, and I want to make it good for people, different that other people may have done in the past, and more innovative."
Yeah, no, I've known I wanted to be a physical therapist since I was in seventh grade. Like I've known for such a long time that I wanted to be a PT. Actually, longer than I wanted to play in the NFL. NFL was never like the only dream for me. Like, oh, this is number one. It's either NFL or bust. Never was the case. I've always wanted to be a physical therapist. And then, I spent a lot of time on the table from seventh grade when I first got introduced to PT throughout high school with, hip problems and stuff like that. Also, college, always in the training room. And then in the league, I lived on the table. Like my medical record book from injuries about like that thick, right? So everything from concussions to broken legs, so on and so forth, turf toe, everything in there. So I was in the table a lot, and somehow would always be able to perform that following week or throughout the rest of the game or things of that nature. So what kind of continued driving that love for it was the fact that I had great PTs. I had people that I related to. I had people that I could communicate with. I had people who were willing to answer my questions. Right? It's like, oh, I hurt my knee, my PCL strain. Why am I doing core today? well, this is why you're doing core, even though you hurt your knee. It plays a role as far as your angles when you transition and cut. So if it's off just a little bit, there's added pressure to that knee. Okay, cool. That makes sense. Thanks for explaining that to me. So like I had little tidbits throughout my playing career, whether that's here in Denver or in Washington, that I kind of grabbed onto. Um,
Mhm.
so I knew that I actually was done with football after my last concussion in October of 2016. Um, I had no real desire to come back. The other kids were super young, so I was like, ultimately, I wanted to continuously be able to, get on the ground and still be functional and all that stuff with the
Yeah.
kids, like I was with my oldest from way back when. Um, and I think 8 years was plenty of time. Like, could I have done more? Could I have could I've been more done more years or played more years? Yeah, I had opportunities, but it just wasn't right for me at the time. It wasn't ideal for me at the time to want to keep playing because 8 years was plenty enough, and I was done. I was
Mhm.
done. So then I jumped into the PT. I guess PT, not necessarily doctoral program, but the prereqs for PT school because
Mhm.
I was a poli sci and sociology major, so none of that transferred over, right? Absolutely none of it. So I had to take all my science classes, chem, bio, and even then, like I was struggling with those classes first and foremost. Because I've been out of school for so long, concussion changed how I learned this, that, and the
Yeah.
third. So I had great help from a buddy to help me get through that first semester, as well as professors. So I was very fortunate in that sense. And then did 2.5 years of prereqs, and then 2.5 years of the doctoral program at CU Anschutz Medical Campus, where I've been very fortunate to have great education there, and I think they're in the top 15 as far as programs in the nation. So I got great education from that school.
And basically, because like it's different in different countries,
Mhm.
so you are at the same level as a doctor, right?
Doctorate of physical therapy. So there's still a little power asymmetry there. But
Mm.
here in the states, and not necessarily uniform, but most states now there's direct access. So if you get an injury, ankle sprain, shoulder sprain, hurt wrist, yada yada, you can come straight to a physical therapist. You don't have to go
Hmm.
to a
To
doctor
doctor.
to get
Mm.
to get a script to come here. You don't
Yeah.
necessarily need to do that. So you can just, but there's that educational piece where you have to constantly educate patients,
Hmm.
hey, or educate society. Like it's a direct access. You don't have to go to your PCP. That's just going to cost you more money in the long run when you can come directly to a physical therapist. We
Yeah.
have the ability to refer. We have the ability to order imaging. We have a lot of abilities here as a
Yeah.
practice. The only thing we can't do is prescribe medication, but we can do differential diagnosis. We can test things. We can use our generalist education and combine with our experience to deduce what is our hypothesis? What do we think is going on here? Okay,
Yeah.
we treat that, and then if it doesn't get better, then we change the plan. Same thing with a doctor; they might diagnose you one way or the other. You go do some more tests. They say, "Oh no, that's not it." Okay, we're going to treat for this. Okay, that's not working. We got to change plans, right? It's the same thing, but there's still a power asymmetry. Doctors, PCP surgeons, chiros, I think are sometimes
Hmm.
seen above us, and then you have your PT. There's always that power asymmetry that exists.
Yeah, but it really depends on the system. Like I'm making you, maybe you have never heard, but Southern Europe. So I come from Italy originally, and you need a degree to
Hmm.
be a physical therapist.
Hmm.
But actually, even like I talked with many people. One physiotherapist I had, she was very good. I'm in Germany now. In Germany, you don't need to have a degree. So yeah, they have like some sort of professional 3 years thing, and honestly, it fails on all levels.
Hmm.
And this one I have, she studied in the Netherlands, and in the
Okay.
Netherlands, it's like in Italy. So you need like to do your high school plus your bachelor,
Hmm.
and it makes sense. Okay, so they are considered doctors.
Hmm.
Instead here it's just like you go to the orthopedic, and they're very good,
Hmm.
very good. But then, you go to the physiotherapist, and most of the time it's like completely useless.
Yeah.
And it's sometimes even dangerous. I broke a bone,
Mhm.
and they've been like doing weird stuff with the cast. Like I had to go 3 times to adjust it.
Mm.
And still, it gave me like here because they put me something at some point because they had to change it. And
Mhm.
here was like pressing.
Yeah.
Can you
Oh,
believe
awesome.
that the soft tissues they
Mhm.
were swallowing for months after that, months, and it
Yeah.
was not going away.
Yeah. It costs there for sure. Yeah. Yeah, and that people get fearful of healthcare providers. They get fearful of pain and things of that nature. Like that is something that you have to take into account when you're treating people. Like, okay, what's their pain threshold? What's their tolerance? What's their social background? What's their physiological background? What's their societal support look like? Like you have to take in the whole person when you're treating somebody, right? It's like
Yeah.
me on the table, like, cool, I can tolerate pain. We can do load. Like, I played a whole game on a broken leg. Like, pain is, I'm cool. Like, that's what I've done my whole life. But there might be somebody's like, I touch their glute just to like try to get down to the piriformis and it lights them up like a Christmas tree. Right. So, I have to take all these things into consideration.
Yeah. So, and you said you had concussions. I read you had 6 concussions in
Mm-hmm.
your time,
Mm-hmm.
which is a lot.
Yeah.
It's really
Yeah.
a lot. And I
Mm-hmm.
think it's also scary because, like, your cognitive functions, as you said, it's really important.
Mm-hmm.
You had to change how you learned. What
Yeah.
was,
Yeah, I was always considered a nerd in the locker room, not only because I read books, like I had old teammates who say, oh, yeah, you're a nerd, Brute. You're always reading in the training room, yada, yada, yada. Like, yeah, I love to read, but I was also the guy who, I see the playbook, I could absorb it. I
Mhm.
had one experience when I played at Notre Dame my freshman year where I was starting going out fresh. I was going to be a freshman starting safety until and then Wednesday before the game on Saturday, I could not grasp the game plan. So then I got benched, and they put the other safety in there, and he ended up starting for the next 2 years, and then I started my junior year. So I missed out the opportunity of being a 4 year starter at Notre Dame, just because I couldn't comprehend the playbook. So that was tough. So after that, I vowed to always be that nerd, always learn the playbook, study a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. So like if the coach put the plays on the screen and all this, that, and the other, my mind was already doing mental gymnastics as far as what could be going on. Like, what if they do this motion? How do we shift? What's the rotation like? And then
Mhm.
our Super Bowl 50 year, I played safety and linebacker. So when I would go linebacker, I knew the playbook well enough where I could switch safeties around. There's three of us, so we can give them different looks. So I didn't necessarily always play linebacker and have to cover the tight end. Like, okay, TJ, you go down there, D Stu, you go middle, or vice versa. Like, we just move everybody around. So it allowed for that creativity in that sense. So I was always, boom, I got it. Cool. Not the same case with Cam or Bio. And everybody's like, oh, it's different. How it's just you haven't been exposed to much science. But I was like, I know how I used to learn, and I never had to write as many notes. I never had to draw as many pictures. I never had to do that. Like I could just see it and grasp it and hold on to it. But then
Mhm.
I had to come up with new new strategies. Not just write it or type it on the iPad or computer, but also have to handwrite it too, like just to get the muscle memory
Yeah.
and friction that to communicate to the brain instead of just mindlessly, a smooth
Mhm.
transition on the iPad or something like that. As well as watch a little bit more of the lecture or actually spend time reading more so preemptively reading the chapters before the actual lecture started. So there were things that I would have to do that I wasn't necessarily accustomed to during my time in college. And this was just the prereq stuff. This is still undergrad at CU Denver before I got to the doctoral program. So I had to
Mhm.
create a new learning style from what I was accustomed to.
But do you think the concussions played some role at some point? Like,
I
did you
think
see
so
any
because
issue?
because I got headaches, my vision changed. I had a lot of symptoms there. I had numbness to the left hand sometimes. So like it definitely played a role. It's hard to deduce exactly the extent of it. What I can tell from my subjective is that how I used to learn and how I used to function was changed specifically after that last concussion.
Okay. And I saw that you actually pushed for some reform. I
Hmm.
think in Colorado, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
But I didn't really understand. So, is it for kids, right?
Yeah, more so for kids. But overall, it's the general population, just the overall population, where they had 10 professionals on that list, 10 different professions on that list of that could treat and diagnose concussions. You know,
Hmm.
um, and physical therapists were dropped off of it. Nurses were allowed to, chiropractors were allowed
Nurses.
to, yep,
Okay.
yep. Doctors allowed to, like different disciplines were allowed to treat and diagnose concussions.
Okay.
However, the profession that sees them the most throughout their time of concussion, the research has suggested that you still want some physical activity um, after that first 48 hours, and how we can monitor and symptoms and their subjective and all that stuff. How was physical therapy dropped off of that list? So I was very fortunate enough to be asked to come up and speak in regards to that bill. This was even before I was in the PT program, because I had concussions, and I'm
Yeah.
looking to go into PT space, and I had PTs help me navigate those concussions and those symptoms. Not saying that it was only isolated to PTs; it's a full team. It's a medical team that's involved, but I definitely know how important PT was in that role as far as watching how my cardiovascular responds and properly loading me and dosing me throughout workouts and reintroducing me back onto the field and making sure I'm not putting
Mhm.
myself at greater risk when I go back out there and have to bang heads.
And was it approved? Because you said it was some time ago.
Do I now?
Eventually, the I think the bill
Mm-hmm.
you
Yes,
proposed,
yes,
was it
ma'am.
approved?
It was approved. Yep, went all the way
Okay.
through House, Senate, and the governor.
Okay. So now, but it's only applying to Colorado.
Yes, it was a Colorado bill. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Interesting. Well, that's good. I mean, you changed something, which
Yeah.
is, I think, a huge impact.
Mm-hmm.
You experienced in first person, and then you became a professional
Mm-hmm.
PT, and like changing even the law. I think it's a great accomplishment. So you had a lot of injuries as well, you said, and
Mm-hmm.
this is also happens to me all the time. I mean, maybe because I have a little bit of over mobility, so I kind of go over my limits all the
Mm-hmm.
time. But I think it's pretty common, especially as adults, ending up doing things, and I don't know, you're tired, you were late, you just got in the class, you didn't do enough warm up, whatever. So it basically happens. And how do you deal with injuries, not only physically? Obviously you go to the doctor if you have a major injury, and then you get some I don't know, prescription or PT, but mentally, because then it's easier to fall off the wagon, as we said.
For sure. The mental aspect and injury is a huge role. Like I mentioned a little bit earlier, that you have to look at the person as a whole, holistically. How are they feeling after an injury? How are they? What's their pressures like? What's their social pressures that they have to deal with? Are they a junior or senior in high school and they have to go out there and play because college scouts are possibly there to continue playing their respective sport? So you have to take into that mental aspect when it comes to rehab. Um, Understanding how that affects you is a huge way. Like if you're going in there and you're always depressed, your body's going to respond to that too. It's like, okay, I don't feel like doing this. I'm not doing it. Like, okay. And then you're going to get comfortable like being a couch potato or a hermit or something like that because you're afraid. There's that fear as well as getting hurt. Um, what that comes down to is like that incremental goal setting when you're in that PT space. Like, okay, you can do this, and education. Like, okay, you
Mhm.
might not be able to do a full depth squat. Okay, let's have a chair with a couple pads or books or something on it. Okay, let's just do squats there so your knees can tolerate that. So on and so forth. Like there's graded exercises to your specific injury, that we can tailor and that we can specifically coordinate for you to go out there and maybe participate in that class, but let's avoid this, this, and this, and then report back to me. Like if anything hurts or irritates it, okay, now we can try to implement that or implement it into our plan. Um, but as far as like you're rushing as an adult and get back to this class, what that's discipline as far as giving yourself time, right? I used to tell people when I was younger, it's like, you ever see a cheetah stretch before it goes gets its prey? It's like, no. Well, yeah. Back in the day when we were just well-oiled machines, like, yeah, stretching, yeah, cool. Here, touch your toes, go. Like now it's like, okay, I got to spend a little bit more time. I got to walk out the treadmill. I got to do some stuff for my shoulders. Like, I have to give myself an extra 5-10 minute space. I have a buddy who has to give himself 45 minutes if he's doing a leg
Hmm.
day. Like he works the heck out of his hips because he knows his hips struggle. Um, so yeah, you kind of create a plan. It's like just that 5 extra minutes doing something dynamic, not a long stretch, but something where you're constantly moving and getting those muscles warm, will help prevent some injury.
Yeah, exactly. So prevention is also a big thing.
Hmm.
And you said depression. I have a question for you because I did a lot of research and I could never find anything about it. Every time I injured myself, I stopped doing sport for some time
Hmm.
and I noticed I had like a dip. Like it was not a dip in motivation, it was just really real depression. And I
Hmm.
was looking because of course, moving gives you a certain type of chemicals in your
Hmm.
bloodstream, and these are happy chemicals,
Hmm.
but then if you stop all of the sudden, I guess you do have a big difference. But I couldn't find it, any information or research about it. Is it a thing? Like, did you experience the same when
Yeah,
you suddenly stopped?
yeah, no. I think what was depressing for me, not necessarily when I called it quits and retired. Like I knew I was done. I knew I was done, and then I didn't have that lag as far as identity crisis. Like I knew that I wanted to be a PT after. I think that's as an athlete, when you walk away from the sport, it's an identity thing. But
Hmm.
like at the end of the day, like unless you're like the Aaron Rodgers of the world or Renatos or Messi's or whatever in the world, you're probably going to have another identity because sports comes to an end.
Yeah.
It comes to an end at some point in time. It could be right after high school. It could be college. It can be in the league after 2 years, 8 years, 15 years. Like at some point, sports comes to an end. Like you're not that same person. Father Time is undefeated, right? Father Time has an undefeated record, except for LeBron. I don't know how he's still going, but at some point in time, it'll catch up to him too, I guess.
Genetics.
Yeah, right. Yeah, there's,
Those are specimens.
yeah. There's quite a few of those out there. But where I noticed I got depressed was, it was my 7th year here with the Broncos. I broke my leg in December before we went on the run to go win the Super Bowl. So,
Yeah.
like, boom, I got removed from the team. I started smoking marijuana. Never smoked a day in my life, but I went on like a 2-week bender. It's like because I didn't know how else to cope. This is my first time that I got injured, and I'm missing 6 weeks. I've been injured where I've missed a couple or a week and a half or
Hmm.
10 days or whatever, but never where I'm at least missing 5 weeks. And
Wow.
then, 6 weeks was when we won the Super Bowl,
Yeah,
right?
it was the Super Bowl 50, which was
Mhm.
also like a big thing,
Yeah.
was one thing in
Yeah.
history of time, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't get to play in that one. So I was definitely depressed there. Definitely went and tried to find something to cope with. And like that brings that relatability piece to like some of the clients or some of the athletes who come through who are under that pressure. Like, man, I got hurt. What am I supposed to do? Like how? So that's why you check in mentally, tap in with them. It's like, okay, well, I know what you've been through. I'm not going to supersede your story with mine, but like I've been there.
Hmm.
I can relate to this. I know that pressure. And what made it tougher for me was that it was also my contract year. So that was my last year on my contract, and I'm trying to, re up one more time to try to get to 8, 9, 10 years or whatnot. So like I've been there. I've been in a high pressure. So that relatability, understanding where they could be mentally, it's like that's why you do a mental check in,
Yeah.
because it's going to affect the course of rehab. It's going to not just like how they progress throughout their injury, but like what these sessions could look like. Are the sessions going to look like we're going to spend more time on the table and talk? Like while I'm doing some manual therapy stuff, giving that therapeutic touch, are we just going to talk as well?
Hmm.
Or is it, okay, you're in spirit, cool, we can spend less time on the table. Let's get after the work. What's the music like? Let's have this, we're in the gym setting, so you still feel like you're part of a team, yada, yada, yada. All right, we're not going to put on Taylor Swift. We're going to put on 2000s hip hop. We're going to crank it up a little bit. We're going to rock out, give that locker room or game time feel to it. So like you tap into that mental space in many different aspects.
Gosh, I think like you make me think that next time I get injured, I have to fly to United States and come to you.
You're more than welcome. You're more than welcome.
Oh gosh. Wow. By the way, were you, even if you were injured, did you go to the Super Bowl 50? Were
Yeah,
you there?
yeah, yeah.
Okay. So
I was
you,
still there. I was just put on injured reserve. But yeah, I was still there. Still, got to wear the jersey for team pictures and still get to participate in the meetings and, still got a ring and things of that nature. And I played a huge role in that season. So I didn't feel necessarily like I didn't contribute. What just sucked was that it was the most I've played on defense. And then, I'm having a great year. I'm over here 3 interceptions and forced fumbles and yada, yada, yada. Like I'm having a great year. And if I was a starter, could be considered like in the Pro Bowl type setting. Um, and then it just came to an end. Came to an end 3 weeks before the actual regular season was over, and another 3-4 weeks before Super Bowl. So that was tough.
yeah, I think it's a good experience. I mean, of course it was negative, but it's
Mhm.
good to hear from you because like for adults who do recreational sport and they get an injury, I mean, at least we don't have to live off that,
Mhm.
because if it was my job, my salary, and then I get injured and then, all those
Mhm.
things happen, definitely it's another story
Yeah.
than just
Mhm.
I cannot do sport for
Yeah.
X amount of weeks, right?
Mhm. Mhm. Yep. Can't make the club in the tub. Old saying.
Yeah, we will keep this in mind next time. So, if you, because obviously, as you said, you fell off the wagon
Mhm.
many times, and if we think about adults who have been very active, as you did in the past, as young
Mhm.
teenagers or maybe even earlier, what piece of advice, if you had to give just one, apart you already talked about goal setting, but if you had to give one to those people who want to go back and they still cannot and they're procrastinating, what would
Mhm.
that be?
Um, if you're starting to get back into working out or getting back into your respective sport or just training, because obviously you have to train a little bit before you jump in full board into a sport. Start with twice a week. See if you can manage twice a week. And then ease into it. Right. A lot of people go 1,000,000%. I can try to lift what I used to back in the day. Yada yada yada. No, no. Like it doesn't work like that. Right. It's like, okay, when a big building that a big movie theater gets taken down or whatever, and they're replacing it with a new movie theater, right? There's still a process. They still have to build, right? It's not boom, that movie theater is gone, the movie theater is up the next day. It doesn't work like there's still a building process to it. So you start with your 2 times a week, and then you ease. Okay, I can do 2 times a week. That's no problem. I feel motivated. I feel good. Okay, bump it up to 3, right? Bump it up to
Hmm.
bump it up to 4. Bump it up to 5. Give yourself a couple rest days though, because you don't want to get back into that point where I'm just too sore. I can't go do anything. I'm not motivated because I can't get off the toilet without my legs cramping, right? So like you have to ease into it, um, and not go full board. That would be like my piece of advice when you're trying to reintroduce working out and training.
Hmm. So take it slow, and eventually I guess it's faster than one thinks,
Mm-hmm.
because like
Yeah,
you're built that way, you
yeah,
you
you've been
built
there.
yourself that way,
Mm-hmm.
basically, so you
Yeah,
don't have to rush it.
yeah, for sure. You've been there. You've been in that position. Your body's going to relearn. Okay, I used to be able to do this. Okay, maybe not the same weight at this point in time, but my body knows this motion. It's familiarized with this. Okay, I can grow from this. I can build on this.
Hmm. You said actually it's really nice because you said your daughter is actually training for 400 meters.
Hmm.
So did you have to somehow be a little bit, because obviously, I mean, you did sport, but you didn't do that specifically. Did you have to be a little bit more creative to find how to actually train her?
Actually, I had track scholarships coming out of high school, and it was to run the 400. So I had
Okay.
scholarships to go run. And if the coach I originally committed to at Notre Dame was still there going into my freshman year, because he got fired my senior year in high school, but if he was still there, he was going to let me run track for Notre Dame. So I had the opportunity to run. So that's why I was familiar with, some of these training styles, like all the 500 meters that we'd have to run in practice, or the 600 meter you have to run, or the 200 repeats. So I've introduced her into that realm, into that world, and she's understanding like, oh, the 400 is real, right? But it's great. It's a motivating factor because it's not me going up to her and be like, "Come on, Lily, let's go run." Right? Let's
She
go.
comes to you.
He comes to me, he's like, "Dad, let's go work out." Dad, I
That's
want to do this.
great.
Okay, we're lifting weights. Dad, can we go on the 400 and work on my pace? So
Mhm.
okay, you want to run 100 and you want to run a 400 in a minute 15 seconds. Okay, here's your pace. Can you do that for 100 meters? Okay, let's chill for a couple minutes. Can you do it again for 100 meters? So trying to, like, there's all these little things, but she's motivated to get better. And she's motivated to beat me. So therefore, I'm motivated because I refuse to let my kids beat me in anything. So I'm I'm way too competitive. You got to earn this. You got to earn this belt, right? You got to earn that victory belt. Um, so yeah, no, it's been great. I've had her being an extrinsic motivating factor has been very, very beneficial. In that sense, it's very cool to have somebody, a little me who looks dead on me, like want to go work out, want to get better, want to lift weights, want to get on the treadmill, want to run outside. Like that's, or when it's nice and I'm going on a 15-mile bike ride, she wants to ride her bike with me. So like it's great that she has found that love and that passion for the gym and understanding what hard work looks like.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not the first time I have someone on the podcast saying that they're actually a daughter was
Mhm,
also a daughter.
mhm,
And she said that she was doing obstacle races
mhm,
and she could not get up to an obstacle. And
mhm,
she was like, oh my God, like I cannot do it, and everybody was
yeah,
doing it. And she
yeah,
was just standing there. And
mhm,
then the moment her daughter was like, screaming, hey, mom, you can do it, like she was really cheering her up.
mhm,
And then she was like, I have to do it.
yeah,
I have to find a way to do it because I cannot stand here in
yeah,
front of her. And she was like, I think 12 years old.
mhm.
So she really felt the responsibility to
Oh,
to
for sure.
show her that it is possible.
For sure. For sure. For sure. Yeah, no, the kids are powerful motivators. That's for sure. That's for sure. And like my youngest, well, my oldest daughter, excuse me, she's very driven in that sense. Like, okay, Dad, let's go work out. But she'll also talk, excuse my language, she'll talk shit too. Like, go faster, Dad. Like, no, come on, I can do that. Dad, why don't you want to run? We did was lift arms today. We can run. It's like, oh my God, I don't want to do these 100 repeats. Like, yeah, so she'll call me out too. So it's great.
Yeah, there will be the day where she will surpass you.
Right? I'll hold on to it till I'm 50. I'm trying.
So, what's next? Because you have a lot of stuff on your plate now, but what's your vision for the next years?
Oh, the next years. I mean, I think just putting forth together, like not just uh not just like my fitness goals, right? It's like I'm getting more into it. Like my goal is to get back to like my playing weight as far as 218. Get a little thicker in the legs, a little thicker in the neck. Work on that fitness. I had some blood work done. Try to get some things to chill out. Nothing too crazy, but I definitely got to eat better because processed food or quick fast food is easy when you got day of patience, and then kids where you get out late. It's like, okay, I need to hurry up and eat because the kids have already ate. Yada yada yada. Um, not only I also have business plan for the clinic, business plan for the foundation, how we're going to grow this thing, how we're going to grow the foundation and make a bigger impact, not just health wise, but literacy wise as well. How can we do that? How can we help our neighborhoods? How can we potentially get to a point where we can offer pro bono or no charge services to underprivileged areas in downtown Denver? Um, but ultimately, but like as far as the purpose of the podcast and being an athlete, I want to, set a record as far as the Courage Classic. Like I want to do it faster. I want to spend less time at the aid stations, right? I want to, I know last year we talked about, okay, let's not stop at the first aid station. So this year coming, we're not going to stop at the first one. We're just going to keep pushing, and get to that 50-mile mark before 40 something mile mark before we decide to, chill and let everybody collect and stay together. Um, fitness wise, I mean, my daughter wants me to run the 400. So one of these track meets here in January, I'll be running a 400. So we'll
So
see.
you're gonna do it as well, the
Yeah, I'm
competition.
gonna do it as well. I'll run. I think I can. I think I can run under a minute for sure. I think I can get to 55 seconds. In high school I ran 47, so I think I can still get there. I mean, only training for a couple weeks, so we'll see. My legs may fall off the bone, but it is what it is.
Yes, absolutely. All right. So thank you very much for being here today,
Yeah,
David.
absolutely.
It was a pleasure really to have you here and talk about all those things. And I think it's much better when we get it from someone who was professional athlete. Um, we kind of feel, oh God, we are not cut for this,
Yeah,
but it's normalized.
yeah, absolutely. We all struggle. We all struggle to get back into a routine or into a flow. So, um, those little tidbits you can do, ease into it, set those micro goal settings, those play a huge role, and then if you have a kid and they're motivated to do it with them, right? Like they're
Push
a
them
great
to
source of,
train.
yeah, they're a great source of motivation. In that same breath, you're motivating them, you're pushing them to get better, to be the best version of themselves, right? You're
Yeah.
creating a habit for them.
Yeah. That's definitely a goal to put in my workshop.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much. And I wish you a lovely day.
Thank you. You as well. Happy New Year.
You too. Bye.